Imagine waking up tomorrow to discover that dinosaurs still roam the earth. It sounds impossible. Once a species goes extinct, it's gone forever. Or so we thought. Throughout history, scientists have declared countless animals extinct. Their habitats vanished, their populations collapsed, and for decades, no one saw them again. But every once in a while, nature surprises us. Hidden deep within remote forests, isolated islands, and the darkest depths of the ocean, a handful of incredible creatures managed to survive against all odds. Some were rediscovered after decades. Others were brought back from the brink by people who refused to give up. Their stories are not just about survival. They're about resilience, hope, and the extraordinary power of conservation. Today we're counting down 10 animals that were once believed to be lost forever, but somehow found a way back. Let's begin. Today, spotting an American alligator in the wetlands of the southeastern United States isn't unusual, but just a few decades ago, the story was very different. During the early 20th century, alligators were hunted relentlessly for their valuable skin, which was used to make shoes, handbags, belts, and other leather products. At the same time, swamps and wetlands were being drained to make room for farms, roads, and growing cities. Their numbers plummeted. By the 1960s, scientists feared the American alligator could disappear forever. Recognizing the danger, the United States placed the species under federal protection. Hunting was heavily restricted, critical habitats were preserved, and conservation efforts expanded across the country. The results were remarkable. Over the following decades, alligator populations rebounded dramatically. Today, there are well over 5 million American alligators living in the wild. What was once one of North America's most endangered reptiles has become one of its greatest conservation success stories. It's proof that when humans choose to protect nature instead of exploiting it, recovery is possible. But not every species was fortunate enough to receive help before it was almost too late. 9. California Condor. High above the rugged cliffs of western North America soars one of the largest flying birds on Earth, the California Condor. With a wingspan stretching nearly 3 meters, these magnificent birds once ruled the skies from British Columbia to Mexico. For thousands of years, they thrive by feeding on the remains of large animals, helping keep ecosystems clean by removing decaying carcasses from the landscape. But their greatest threat wasn't another predator, it was humans. As settlements expanded across North America, condors lost much of their natural habitat. Hunters also unknowingly poisoned them through lead ammunition left inside animal carcasses. Every meal became a deadly gamble. Their population continued to fall, year after year, generation after generation, until conservationists faced an impossible decision. In 1987, only 27 California condors remained alive. To save the species, every remaining wild condor was captured. For the first time in history, not a single California condor flew freely across the skies. Many feared the species would never recover. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Scientists launched one of the most ambitious captive breeding programs ever attempted. Every chick became precious. Every successful release into the wild became a symbol of hope. Slowly, the skies welcomed them back. Today, hundreds of California condors once again soar over California, Arizona, Utah, and Baja California. Although they remain endangered, they represent one of the greatest wildlife recoveries ever achieved. Sometimes, saving an entire species begins with protecting just a handful of survivors. 8. Arabian Oryx. Roaming the scorching deserts of the Arabian Peninsula is an animal that was once declared extinct in the wild, the Arabian Oryx. With its brilliant white coat reflecting the intense desert sun and its long, perfectly straight horns, this elegant antelope has inspired legends for centuries. Some historians even believe sightings of the Arabian Oryx may have contributed to the myth of the unicorn. But by the middle of the 20th century, its future looked hopeless. Modern firearms and off-road vehicles allowed hunters to reach even the most remote parts of the desert. What had once been a skilled hunt became effortless. Year after year, the population continued to shrink. Then, in 1972, the last known wild Arabian oryx disappeared. For the first time in history, the species was officially declared extinct in the wild. Fortunately, a small number of Arabian Oryx survived in zoos and private wildlife reserves. Conservationists from around the world worked together to carefully breed the remaining animals, knowing that every birth brought the species one step closer to survival. After years of dedication, the impossible became reality. Arabian oryx were released back into protected desert habitats across Oman, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Jordan. Today, thousands once again roam the deserts where their ancestors almost vanished forever. The Arabian oryx became the first large mammal in history to move from being classified as extinct in the wild to once again living freely in its natural habitat. It's a remarkable reminder that even when hope seems lost, nature can still write a different ending. But the next animal story may be even more surprising. It became one of the world's most recognizable endangered species. Yet for decades, no one knew if it could truly be saved. 7. Giant panda. Few animals are as instantly recognizable as the giant panda. With its distinctive black and white fur and gentle appearance, the panda has become a global symbol of wildlife conservation. But behind that familiar face lies a remarkable survival story. For millions of years, giant pandas thrived in the misty bamboo forests of central China. Entire generations depended almost exclusively on bamboo, spending up to 14 hours each day eating enough to survive. Then humans arrived. As cities expanded and forests were cleared for farming, roads, and development, the panda's habitat became fragmented into isolated pockets. The animals were cut off from one another. Finding food became more difficult. Finding mates became even harder. By the late 20th century, scientists feared the giant panda was heading toward extinction. With fewer than 1,100 believed to remain in the wild, the future looked uncertain. China responded with one of the largest wildlife conservation programs in history. New nature reserves were established. Illegal hunting was banned. Massive areas of bamboo forest were protected and restored. Scientists also launched breeding programs, carefully studying panda behavior to improve reproduction and increase the population. Years of dedication began to pay off. Today, more than 1,800 giant pandas live in the wild, with hundreds more cared for in conservation centers around the world. Although they are still considered vulnerable, the giant panda's recovery stands as one of the greatest conservation successes of modern times. It proves that when governments, scientists, and local communities work together, even a species standing on the edge of extinction can be given a second chance. But while the panda's battle took place on land, the next survivor fought for its existence beneath the waves, where commercial whaling pushed one of the ocean's greatest giants dangerously close to extinction. 6. Humpback whale. Imagine a world where the songs of whales disappeared forever. For millions of years, humpback whales have traveled thousands of kilometers across the world's oceans, making one of the longest migrations of any animal on Earth. These gentle giants can grow up to 16 meters long and weigh more than 30 tons. Despite their enormous size, they survive almost entirely on tiny creatures like krill and small fish. For centuries, humpback whales ruled the oceans with few natural enemies. Then humans developed industrial whaling. During the 19th and 20th centuries, powerful steam-powered ships and explosive harpoons transformed whale hunting forever. What had once been a difficult pursuit became a global industry. Whales were hunted relentlessly for their oil, meat, and blubber. Entire populations disappeared from oceans around the world. By the 1960s, scientists estimated that some humpback whale populations had fallen by more than 90%. Many feared the species would never recover. Recognizing the crisis, countries around the world began introducing strict protections. Commercial whaling was gradually banned in many regions, while marine sanctuaries provided safe places for whales to breed and raise their young. Slowly, the oceans began to change. Year after year, more calves were born. Ancient migration routes came back to life. Today, there are an estimated 80,000 humpback whales swimming through the world's oceans. Although some populations still face threats from climate change, fishing gear, ship strikes, and pollution, The humpback whale has become one of the greatest conservation success stories in marine history. Its haunting songs, once at risk of disappearing forever, can once again be heard echoing across the seas. But our next survivor had an even stranger journey. For years, scientists believed every single one had vanished, until one unexpected discovery changed everything. 5. Black-footed Ferret. At first glance, the black-footed ferret doesn't look like a survivor. Small, slender, and weighing less than a kilogram, this nocturnal predator once roamed the vast grasslands of North America in the hundreds of thousands. Its survival depended almost entirely on one animal, the prairie dog. Prairie dog colonies provided both food and shelter, with ferrets spending most of their lives hunting and raising their young inside underground burrows. But as farmers expanded across the Great Plains, prairie dogs were widely poisoned and exterminated because they were considered pests. With their primary food source disappearing, black-footed ferret populations collapsed. Then another disaster struck. A deadly disease known as sylvatic plague swept through the remaining prairie dog colonies, wiping out entire ecosystems almost overnight. By the late 1970s, scientists believed the black-footed ferret had gone extinct. For years, no one saw a single one. It seemed the species had vanished forever. Then, in 1981, something extraordinary happened. On a ranch near the small town of Metizas, Wyoming, a ranch dog named Shep returned home carrying the body of a strange animal. Curious, its owner showed it to local wildlife officials. To everyone's astonishment, it was a black-footed ferret. Scientists rushed to the area and discovered a tiny hidden population that had escaped detection for years, but the celebration was short-lived. Disease threatened to wipe out the last survivors. Conservationists made a bold decision. The remaining ferrets were captured and placed into a carefully managed breeding program. From just 18 surviving individuals, scientists worked tirelessly to rebuild the species. Today, thanks to decades of conservation, thousands of black-footed ferrets have been bred, with many successfully reintroduced into protected grasslands across North America. Their future is still uncertain, but their rediscovery remains one of the greatest wildlife comeback stories ever recorded. Sometimes, hope arrives in the most unexpected way, and our next survivor proves that even on a remote island with fewer than 100 individuals left, a species can still refuse to disappear. 4. Kakapo. Imagine being a bird that forgot how to fly. For millions of years, the kakapo lived in complete isolation on the islands of New Zealand. With no large land predators to fear, flight simply wasn't necessary. Instead, this remarkable parrot evolved into the world's heaviest and only flightless parrot. It spent its nights climbing trees, foraging through forests, and living a peaceful life. But that peaceful existence wouldn't last forever. When humans arrived in New Zealand, they didn't come alone. They brought cats, rats, stoats, and other predators the kakapo had never encountered before. The bird had no instinct to flee. Instead of flying away, it froze. What had once been a successful survival strategy suddenly became a death sentence. Within just a few generations, kakapo numbers collapsed. By the 1970s, scientists feared the species was gone forever. Then came an extraordinary discovery. A tiny population was found surviving on Stewart Island, hidden in one of the most remote parts of New Zealand. But even there, introduced predators continued to hunt them. Conservationists acted quickly. Every remaining kakapo was carefully captured and relocated to predator-free offshore islands. Each bird was given a name. Every nest was monitored. Every egg was protected. Scientists even fitted many of the birds with tiny transmitters, allowing them to follow each individual's movements and health. The recovery was slow, painfully slow, because kakapos breed only when certain native trees produce large amounts of fruit, a natural event that may happen only every few years. Every chick became incredibly valuable. Every successful breeding season brought renewed hope. Today, thanks to decades of relentless conservation, the kakapo population has grown to more than 250 birds. It's still one of the rarest parrots on Earth, but unlike before, its story is no longer one of inevitable extinction. It's a story of perseverance, of patience, and of people refusing to let one of the world's most extraordinary birds disappear forever. Yet even the Kakapo's comeback isn't the most remarkable, because the next survivor wasn't just rare, it was the last truly wild horse on Earth. 3. Przewalski's horse. For thousands of years, wild horses thundered across the vast grasslands of Central Asia, untamed, unbroken, completely free. Among them was a remarkable species unlike any other, Przewalski's horse, often called the world's last truly wild horse. This powerful animal once roamed the endless steppes of Mongolia in large herds, perfectly adapted to one of the harshest environments on Earth. Unlike domestic horses, Przewalski's horses were never bred by humans. They remained wild in every sense of the word, but during the 20th century, their world began to disappear. Expanding human settlements, competition with livestock, prolonged droughts, and relentless hunting steadily pushed the species closer to extinction. As grasslands vanished, so did the horses. By the late 1960s, not a single Przewalski's horse remained in the wild. The species had disappeared from its natural habitat. Its only hope rested in a small number of animals living in zoos around the world. Fewer than 20 breeding individuals remained. It was a dangerously small population. One disease, one failed breeding season, could have erased the species forever, but conservationists refused to let that happen. For decades, wildlife experts from multiple countries carefully managed breeding programs, preserving as much genetic diversity as possible. Then came the moment they had been working toward for years. The horses were returned to the wild. One by one, small herds were released into protected reserves across Mongolia and China. For the first time in generations, truly wild horses once again galloped across the open steppe. Today, hundreds of Przewalski's horses roam free, while conservation programs continue to strengthen their population. Their return stands as one of the greatest rewilding achievements in modern history. It proves that even when a species disappears completely from the wild, it doesn't always mean the story is over, but our next animal's survival is almost impossible to believe. Scientists declared it extinct. Decades passed without a single sighting. Then, on a tiny volcanic island in the middle of the ocean, someone found one alive. 2. Lord Howe Island stick insect. Imagine an animal so rare that the world believed it had vanished forever. Meet the Lord Howe Island stick insect, often nicknamed the tree lobster. Growing up to 15 centimeters long, this giant stick insect once lived only on Lord Howe Island, a small volcanic island in the Tasman Sea between Australia and New Zealand. For thousands of years it thrived in complete isolation, but in 1918, disaster arrived. A supply ship accidentally ran aground near the island, releasing black rats onto its shores. What followed was devastating. The rats multiplied rapidly, feeding on the island's native wildlife. The flightless tree lobster stood little chance. Within just a few years, the species disappeared. Scientists searched for decades, but every expedition ended the same way: nothing. By the 1930s, the Lord Howe Island stick insect was officially declared extinct, or so everyone believed. Then, more than 40 years later, a team of climbers scaling Ball's Pyramid, a towering volcanic sea stack rising more than 550 meters from the ocean, noticed something extraordinary, hidden beneath a single windswept shrub. They discovered a tiny population of giant stick insects, just 24 individuals. They had survived for decades on one of the most isolated rock formations on Earth. It was one of the most astonishing wildlife rediscoveries ever recorded. Conservationists carefully collected a small number of breeding pairs and began an ambitious captive breeding program. Against all expectations, the population began to grow. Today, thousands of these remarkable insects exist in conservation facilities, and scientists continue working toward the goal of returning them to their natural home. Their story proves that even when an entire species seems lost, nature can still hide extraordinary secrets in the most unexpected places. But if you think that's unbelievable, our number one survivor rewrote everything scientists thought they knew about evolution. It wasn't missing for decades. It was missing for 66 million years. 1. Coelacanth. Imagine discovering an animal that scientists believed had vanished with the dinosaurs, not for decades, not for centuries, but for more than 66 million years. Meet the coelacanth. Often called the living fossil, this strange deep-sea fish was thought to have disappeared during the same mass extinction event that wiped out the dinosaurs. For generations, the only evidence of its existence came from ancient fossils preserved in stone. Every biology textbook agreed on one thing: the coelacanth was extinct. Then, on December 22, 1938, everything changed. Off the coast of South Africa, a local fishing trawler hauled in its daily catch. Among the fish was something no one had ever expected to see: its shimmering blue scales, its unusual limb-like fins, its prehistoric appearance. The fish looked unlike anything anyone had seen before. Museum curator Marjorie Courtenay Latimer immediately realized it was extraordinary. After experts examined the specimen, the scientific world was left in disbelief. The impossible had happened. The coelacanth was alive. A species believed to have disappeared millions of years earlier had been quietly surviving in the deep ocean all along. Today, scientists know that small populations still inhabit the deep waters near the Comoros Islands, Indonesia, and parts of East Africa. Living hundreds of meters below the surface, these mysterious fish spend most of their lives hidden inside underwater caves, making them incredibly difficult to study. They grow slowly, they reproduce slowly, and they can live for more than a century. Every encounter with one is a rare glimpse into Earth's distant past. The coelacanth reminds us that our planet still holds mysteries beyond our imagination. Even in the 21st century, there are discoveries waiting beneath the waves that challenge everything we think we know. Nature has an extraordinary way of surprising us. Sometimes, the impossible is simply something we haven't discovered yet. Extinction is often seen as the final chapter in a species' story, but as we've seen today, that isn't always true. From birds soaring once again through the skies, to giant mammals returning to the deserts, to prehistoric fish swimming silently through the depths of the ocean. These incredible animals prove that hope can survive even when the odds seem impossible. Their survival wasn't guaranteed. It required time, dedication, scientific innovation, and people who refuse to give up. But not every endangered species will be as fortunate. Thousands of animals around the world are still fighting for survival, and the choices we make today will determine whether they become tomorrow's comeback stories or tomorrow's fossils. If you enjoyed this documentary, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to Trillion Thoughts, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories about wildlife, science, history, and the mysteries of our world. Thank you for watching, and remember, sometimes the greatest discoveries aren't the ones we create. They're the ones nature has been hiding all along.